Hello and welcome to the candidate forum for LFUCG City Council District 11. We're so excited to have our candidates here today. I am Liza Holland and I will be your moderator, and the League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan organization, is the sponsor today. This forum and others will be available later by going to the League website or to our YouTube channel. We have two candidates for this election. They are Mr. Rock Daniels and Ms. Jennifer Reynolds. Thank you again for being here. We are following the League of Women Voters policies and procedures for this forum. In order to give the candidates a fair chance to be heard, we have randomly drawn via random.org for the order of opening remarks and questions, and a second time for the order of closing remarks. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to introduce themselves, 60 seconds to respond to questions. These questions have been created by the sponsors and have also been solicited through our website from the public. Finally, we will give each candidate 60 seconds for closing remarks, and we will use the second random drawing order for the order of closing comments. So without further ado, we will start with opening remarks, and Ms. Reynolds, you will go first, 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. And I especially want to thank all of you at the League of Women Voters for having these forums and giving us a chance to speak on the issues and the things that are important to you. My name is Jennifer Reynolds. I'm the 11th District Council member, and I've been serving for 2 terms and am currently running for my 3rd term. I care about a lot of different issues and have worked with residents in the district on many different things. But 3 of the things that I've focused on in the past and am continuing to focus on are communication, our main corridors, and community safety. Those are things that I will talk about a little bit more later. I think that my background as being a business owner, my background as working for nonprofits and doing community outreach work in various different communities, including the 11th District, have helped serve me well so that I can work with the diverse district that we have here in Lexington as the 11th District.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels.
My name is Rock Daniels, and I am a realtor, and I'm a small business owner. I own a construction company, and for almost 20 years, I've specialized in revitalization and historic preservation in downtown Lexington. One of the main reasons that I ran for city council this time is because 2 terms ago, our city was rated the 3rd safest city in America. And right now, our city is just riddled with crime. We've got violence all over Lexington. We've even been ranked one of the top cities when it comes to murder rate throughout the country. So I really want to focus in on public safety. Want to focus in on strengthening neighborhoods and communities. We also have a huge problem with traffic flow throughout our city. So I'd like to focus in on that as well. I've been a youth coach. So I do understand the importance of being there for young people and trying to be a mentor as they grow and develop into productive members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels, you'll take this question first.
Okay.
What do you see as the single most important issue facing your district, and what is your plan to address the issue should you be elected?
So I think right now, I mean, the single most important thing for our district is public safety. We have, like I said, we have violence all over Lexington. The police department is currently 115 sworn officers short, and 150 could retire tomorrow. Our corrections officers are 118 officers short, and we're seeing that judges and prosecutors are bonding out violent offenders because there's not enough room to house them in our jail. And all of this stems from the fact that we haven't funded them properly in comparison to cities that are adjacent to us, such as Georgetown, Richmond. I mean, they are paying these officers more money. Some of our officers, the starting salary for an officer in Lexington is $48,000, which is comparable to what someone who qualifies for affordable housing would qualify for. So I really think that we need to increase the pay. We also need to address the E911 crisis that we have right now as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Reynolds.
Thank you. Our district is extremely diverse. And if you talk to 100 residents in the 11th district, they're all going to give you a different answer of what they think is the most important issue to them. It could be loud noise, it could be crime, it could be traffic, it could be a number of issues. And so I find it hard to boil everything down to one issue. One thing that my office receives a lot of inquiries about is transportation and our infrastructure. So I focused a lot on infrastructure, on making sure that our corridors are safe, on getting money for the Versailles Road Corridor Improvement Project to see that to fruition, working with the state on Leestown Road, and working to improve even the Manchester corridor. So I think that people care about how they get from A to B. They want to have safe sidewalks, they want to have safe trails, and they want to have safe bike paths. And I'm working on a complete street policy with my colleagues as well on that. So that's just one of the main issues.
Thank you so much. You'll take this next question first, and it could be a nice transition there. Many citizens in the region lack private transportation and must rely upon accessible, reliable, safe, and affordable public transportation. What measures do you support to meet the needs of the growing population in Lexington and extending into Fayette County and adjacent counties who require public transportation for their jobs, medical care, groceries, and other needs?
Well, I have worked with LexTran over my past 4 years on talking about improving their ridership and their routes that they have available. And I'm working with them currently on a project for one of my main corridors to have safer and covered bus shelters. That being said, public transit in terms of LexTran is separate from the government. So I don't get to make all of the choices about that. But one thing that I can do is help put policies in place that encourage public transit, that encourage other modes of transportation like bike lanes and sidewalks. And I've been doing that. I've been working on that. And I've also been encouraging the city to have a sidewalk fund, which it currently does not have and is a big desire from all of our residents to have more sidewalk connections and more new sidewalks built. So I'm trying to get a fund for that. And also, as I mentioned earlier, working on a complete street policy, and I'll continue to work with LexTran on expanding their services.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels?
So I believe that public transportation is a must for a thriving city. My father-in-law is the mayor of Georgetown, and they are actually starting to have transportation in between Georgetown and Lexington. And I see that as housing has become so unaffordable in Lexington, we need to make sure that we have public transportation that goes to outlying cities. We need to make sure that every single city that's within 20 miles of us has some sort of transportation that goes to and from that city. Also, we need to encourage people to use our bike trails, to walk. I know that the University of Kentucky has a Live Where You Work program where they give up to 5%, $15,000 towards a down payment for housing. We could do the same for some of our city workers, have some sort of incentive that keeps them off the roads and incentivizes them to utilize a bicycle or just walk. So that would be my plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels, you'll take the next question first, circling back to that public safety issue you mentioned earlier. Regarding increased violence in our community, it seems for so long we've only treated the symptoms of increased violence, and it hasn't really worked to decrease the violence nor increase trust between our community and law enforcement and government. How do you plan to implement policies and practices that focus on the roots of the issue, that seek to repair the racial and economic disparities and mistrust of law enforcement and government in our community?
Well, that's a fantastic question. So the main thing is we need more law enforcement officers. So we need to raise their pay so that we can get good quality law enforcement officers. And I don't mean the law enforcement officers that are in the car, that are driving around. We need officers on the street going door to door, knocking on their doors and talking to neighbors and getting to know them. Through that, you establish bonds of trust. And it's only when you establish these bonds of trust that you're going to have neighbors that are willing to call law enforcement officers and say, hey, there's someone down the street who's dealing drugs. Can you please come take care of that for me? So, I do believe that we need more police, but I honestly believe that they need to be those community resource officers. I know that there's one community resource officer now named Ryan Holland, and he does a fantastic job of getting to know neighbors, and he sees neighbors who have code enforcement violations, and he brings the community together to help these elderly neighbors rebuild their houses and stuff. So, building those bonds of trust through getting to know neighbors is a key.
Thank you so much. Ms. Reynolds.
Yes, I think that our crime issues are multifaceted, hard to tackle with just one thing. But when it comes to trust, trust is something that's earned. It's not something that's demanded. And I think that one of our best ways of trying to build a relationship with the community and public safety is our neighborhood resource officer program. And I know that, our chief is a big proponent of that program. We have not been able to get it to the numbers that we like, but I think taking some patrol away and switching to a more community policing focus would be helpful. Another thing is the paramedicine program, and that's an item that I had in committee. It works with police, fire, and social workers, and they work together to help those in the community that repeatedly call E911, have mental health issues, and they try to connect them with the resources that they need.
Thank you. And you'll take this next question first. We had a flood of, a flood of questions about housing affordability in Lexington. Sorry about that, losing my voice. Lexington faces challenges across districts with regard to housing affordability, diversity, and accessibility. What's the city's role in addressing affordable housing? And how would you recommend prioritizing policy change to address these challenges?
Affordable housing is a huge issue and a huge problem, and people's rent has been going up a lot with inflation as well as house prices. One main thing we have to do to address this is to build more housing of all types so that there's more housing available to everybody. And we need to be able to make the city and open space available to developers in order to do that and encourage that. We need to continue funding our affordable housing fund as high as we can within reason. Right now, we've been doing that, and we gave $10 million of ARPA money towards that. In addition, we need to make rights for tenants more accessible, and we need to come up with ways so that they have rights against poor landlords. And that might mean looking at more places accepting either Section 8 vouchers or affordable housing type situations for those that need it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, ma'am. That's a great question, and affordable housing is a huge problem in Lexington. One thing that we're seeing is a lot of landlords aren't taking Section 8. And the Section 8 vouchers, in my opinion, as a person that owns property himself, is too low. It's not market rate. So the person might have a voucher for $800, but if the landlord has 75 other people who are willing to pay $1,000, they're not going to take that voucher. So I feel that the city should set money aside to bridge the gap between what market rate is and what the Section 8 voucher gives. I also think that with affordable housing, we do a poor job as a city in moving those people who make between 60 and 80% of the median income from tenancy to ownership. I think if we can take those people and move them from tenancy to ownership, that takes a whole group of individuals out of the rental market and opens up a lot more housing. It also can keep a person's mortgage set at a fixed rate. And as we know, prices are only going to increase with rental units. And if that person can stay at a fixed rate, that can help them with their budget each and every month.
Thank you so much. You'll take this question first, Mr. Daniels. And it kind of is an extension of our last question. But in an era where multifamily dwellings are increasingly common, what strategies for equity building and ownership can the city employ beyond the single family detached house?
Well, I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for years, and we dealt with lots of multi-use developments. And these developments were similar to what Phil Hollebeck has done with Main and Rose, where you have commercial, retail, along with high density housing. And I think that high density housing is the answer, because none of us want to break up the horse farms. We don't want to see suburban sprawl. We don't want to look like Dallas, Texas. We want to preserve our unique look and feel. So if we can build more high density housing, it will be less expensive because the higher the density, the more affordable it will be. And we can open it up to more and more people. I also feel that we need to look at exclusionary zoning practices that we have. So some properties that are zoned R1 right now in our downtown area, if we can get them zoned R3 and allow for more usage.
Thank you so much. Ms. Reynolds.
Thank you. When it comes to housing affordability, I think the question was in reference to people that live in multifamily housing or high density. And I think that we can, when we look at that, that's part of our comp plan. That's what our comprehensive plan is encouraging, this high density housing. That high density housing does not always have to be rental only. It can be owned, it can be condos, it can be duplexes, it can be quadruplexes. And I think we should be looking at our affordable trust fund and how we can help offset those costs so that they're not as expensive for those that are in need of buying, because buying can be more affordable depending on the situation. The other thing is that we're looking at density and we need density, but we don't always do a great job of reaching out to our neighborhoods and helping them understand that our comp plan requires that density. So we need to do more education, working with those that need the housing and those that live in the neighborhoods where that high density housing is going.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And you will take this next question first. Poverty is one of the biggest issues that affects poor families' education and employment opportunities. What plans and steps do you see as very important to implementation and promotion of effective poverty elimination programs? And what are you willing to do to ensure the implementation is a priority?
Thank you. I think one of the places that our education, or where education starts for those families that are underserved and in need, is at the school level. And so I think it's important that we're working with our schools, even though city council doesn't have a say over the schools, that we're working with them and helping the resource centers at the schools have the things that they need and connect them with the resources that the city has available for families. I think we need to continue working on youth programming. We need to make sure that we're having more youth programming in parks and utilizing our parks and community centers better to reach families that might be single parents. The kids might not have anything to do after school. It's important that youth from a young age feel that they're valued. That helps prevent crime later in life. So I think we need to put more resources towards that. We've kind of pulled away from that over the years, and I think that we need to get back to that. And then I'm willing to implement any other policies that would help in alleviating poverty.
Thank you much. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, ma'am. I actually agree with Ms. Reynolds on putting more youth activities. I've been working to put athletics back in our elementary schools. We need to make sure that we have athletics as well as the arts for our children. That way that they can grow to become productive members of society. I also think that we need to look at how can we bring more companies to our community. You know, companies bring jobs, and these jobs need to be well-paying jobs. Part of that also ties into public safety. You know, when companies are looking at cities of where they want to go, they look at the safety of the community. So we need to make sure that we build our public safety departments up. You know, make sure we support our first responders. Be a huge advocate for the One Lexington program and Divine Karama and all the good work that he's doing, and just be advocates for people to get jobs.
Thank you so much. You'll take this next question first. Meaningful public participation is vital to a responsive local government. What are some innovative approaches that you would advocate for to make government processes more accessible, equitable, and transparent?
Well, first of all, I would probably get rid of the double reading where you could pass something in one sitting. I think that everyone always needs to have greater transparency and enough time where they can have input. I also think that not having meetings early in the afternoon, sometimes people aren't allowed to, especially people in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods are sometimes not allowed or afforded the right to speak up. Our city council meetings are at night, but the work sessions are during the day. A lot of the meetings for planning and zoning, they're during the day. So, you know, some of the people that are affected by some of these things don't have the opportunity to let their voice be heard. So maybe it's a period where they talk about something and we have time for them to give their input before decisions are made, because I mean, it's very important for me that everyone lets their voice be heard.
Thank you. Ms. Reynolds.
Thank you. I care a lot about this issue, and I've worked with Civic Lex on it in terms of making sure that people's public comment can be part of the official record without always having to go down and comment in person. So I think that we should have emails and things like that, written public comment as part of our record. And I know that's something that we've been working on. And then also think that we really need to do a lot better job of education. And I've been working on our website and making it more user-friendly, but we have a really long way to go. People don't know how to find things. If they Google something, it doesn't pop up. And so we need to make our website more accessible and help educate the public on how our meetings run and why their voice is important. One thing I did was I moved that as a council member 2 years ago, I moved that people do not have to give their address when they come to speak. They only have to give their council district. That was to keep autonomy, make sure that people felt safe during public comment.
Thank you so much. You will take this next question first. Do you support historic preservation? How would you characterize priorities as historically significant or warranting historic preservation?
I do support historic preservation, but it depends on the case. I think it's important that neighborhoods can decide themselves as a majority if that's something that they want for their neighborhood. We have a lot of historic buildings, and though it's tricky sometimes to maintain them, it's important that they're noted and registered as historic. But when it comes to neighborhoods, it can be a tricky thing. Some people want historic preservation type overlay on them, and some do not. But I think that it's a process that the neighborhood should decide for as itself, and the majority be in agreement with. We have a lot of great history in Lexington, and I think it would be a shame to lose that, and that we need to support our historic buildings and preservation.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniels.
Well, I absolutely support historic preservation. I actually specialize in historic preservation. So I've worked alongside the historic preservation group in downtown Lexington, Amelia, with LFUCG. And I really think, like Jennifer said, you know, if the community wants it, such as with my neighborhood, you know, Meadowthorpe, we are not H1. So there's a lot of communities that don't want to be H1 because they want to have the opportunity to put vinyl windows in and things like that. But if the community does want, certain parts of downtown, absolutely, historic preservation is a must. I mean, it really adds to the character of a neighborhood. It adds to the character of a city. As you're walking through downtown and you see Mary Todd Lincoln's house, you don't want to see a house that's vinyl sided and clad next to it. So I think it creates a more walkable city that people enjoy to come and visit and spend their money, which in turn creates jobs. So yes, absolutely, historic preservation is a must in our city.
Thank you so much. This will be the last question before we turn to closing comments. And Mr. Daniels, you'll take this first. Climate change has been a very hot topic in global news. What are your priorities for green initiatives to fight climate change in Lexington?
Well, I've read several articles about school systems in Arizona that have partnered with solar companies, and the solar companies have put solar panels on buildings, paid for the cost of the solar panels, and then split the profit after they were paid for back with the school system. I think as a municipality, we could look at doing the same. Other things that we should do is, again, promote people riding their bikes, people utilizing some of these e-bikes, people walking through our downtown. Other things, I really think we need to slow traffic down in downtown. Main Street, I live on Leestown Road, and traffic just flies through here. So as we slow some of this traffic down, I think that also has to do with energy consumption, gas consumption. We're going to put the double diamond out Leestown Road and the sound wall. All those things are important to not only have so noise pollution and things like that as well. Sorry. Stop.
Thank you so much. Those 60 seconds go fast. Ms. Reynolds.
I recently took a trip to Sevierville, Tennessee to see what their waste management program was doing. They divert 70% of their waste and they turn it into compost. That is compost that can be used by the community for free, but also breaks down way better than a huge landfill. I'm hoping to do something like that here in Lexington, where we would have a type of machine that burns the trash and breaks it down quickly. And that is something that I think is definitely possible in our near future and would make a huge impact on making our community more green. In addition, we have put money towards the tree canopy. We did that with ARPA money, and this community cares a lot about trees. And I think that we've shown that as well. And that's something that we want to be a part of. And I know we still have a lot of work to do, but I think we're making progress. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And thank you, both of you. You've had really well-informed and insightful responses to the questions today. We'll now move towards closing remarks, and based upon a random.org, Mr. Daniels, you will go first. 60 seconds for your closing remarks.
Again, I am Rock Daniels. I am a realtor and a small business owner. Like I said before, I've owned my construction company for years. I'm a father of two. My wife, Heather, and I, we live on Leestown Road in Meadowthorpe. I've been the president of the Meadowthorpe Neighborhood Association. I've also been on the board of the YMCA and led the campaign for kids. I look forward to tackling some issues such as public safety. We need to also add more youth activities in our town. We need to create stronger neighborhoods. We need to very much focus on traffic flow and how the traffic flows through our city. I look forward to rolling up my sleeves and working very hard for the 11th district. I'm not saying that our current council member is a bad person whatsoever. I'm not saying that she's done a terrible job, but I do think that I will do a great job being the 11th district council person.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Reynolds.
Thank you. Well, I have loved serving the 11th District over the past 4 years. We've gone through a pandemic, a global pandemic. We've gone through police issues. We're going through a lot of challenges right now. And it's not easy, but I am dedicated and committed to serve. And I'm going to continue to work on communication. I'm the only council member that has ever done all of their communication in both Spanish and English, and a quarter of our district is Hispanic. I will continue to do that. I will continue to fight for equality and language access, like I did with the website. I will continue to work on the corridors and make sure that the For Sales Road Corridor Improvement Project continues and is completed. I had money put in that with administration this year for the budget, and we'll continue to work with that. I will continue to work on Leestown Road and Manchester and all of our corridors. In addition, I'm committed to community safety. I was the only one that was talking about gun violence on council back early this year. I put it in our Planning and Public Safety Committee, and I'm committed to see that fruition and to look for a program to help us deal with the uptick in gun violence.
Thank you so very much. And thank you to both of you for being here today. It is a wonderful thing that you help the League achieve its mission of informing voters as well as encouraging them to vote, which I will do now. Please make your voting plan now to vote on November the 8th. You may also look for additional information from the candidates on vote411.org. If you're interested in more of these forums or in league membership, please do check us out at lwvlexington.com. And thank you so much for joining us.